הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם yachad. Shana Tova, everyone. Happy New Year. One of the messages I think you're going to hear from me a lot this morning is that we are saying so many words that we usually say almost without thinking. Sometimes they almost seem automatic. But in a year like this, when we're coming out of our COVID cocoon, it's anything but automatic. I think we understand so much more how some of the words we say have really deep meaning. So when we say Shana Tova, it's not just a casual, oh, we hope you have a happy new year. This year we really expect and hope that we will have a better 5782 than we did for 5781. It's going to be so much better. It's already off to an even better start, because last year, if any of you were involved with us for Rosh Hashanah, it was behind a computer screen and on Zoom. And while it was as good as could possibly be, it was a poor substitute for looking out at all of us here and seeing our faces, even behind masks, but seeing our faces, seeing our eyes, being able to touch, being able to hug at the appropriate distances, and still, what an improvement, and it's only going to get better from here. So welcome everyone to what is now the 11th annual Temple Aliyah family service. I did the first one 10 years ago, believe it or not, in 2011. Now it is 2021. So an entire generation of Temple Aliyah families have grown up coming to this service. Leah Berger is there in the back. When I started, Leah Berger was, I think, still in preschool and was coming to the preschool service, and now she's here with her younger sister Kaya and able to bring Kaya, Kaya is 7 already yet? Yeah. Good God, everyone keeps getting older and I keep staying the same age. Yeah. Although as one child told me this morning, I said, how does everyone getting older at the same age? The child told me, you need to find your birthday. Very wise child. So, a couple of rules for this morning just to make things a little bit smoother as usual. Number one, to the best as possible, introduce yourselves to as many people as you feel comfortable at a distance that you feel as comfortable as possible. We want this to feel as much like we are all part of a big family. Number two, thankfully being both outdoors and masked, it is perfectly okay by a CDC and COVID policy for us to be singing. So we certainly hope that with that you're able to join us with your voices. The rule of thumb is nobody's voice sounds bad when you're singing with somebody else. So long as each of us is singing together, we'll all be fine. Number three, please make sure that if you have some kind of electronic device that might ding, buzz, make otherwise strange noises, that we turn it off or at least silence it. We want to be fully present since we're able to be here together. And fourth and most importantly for this morning, we ask that where possible you keep an appropriate distance from other people. That means ideally having at least one, if not two seats between you and the nearest other family unit, if you can, or the equivalent distance thereof if you want to spread your seats out accordingly. Number two, we ask that unlike usual, that the front line of seats sort of act like the invisible line. I'm going to stay up here as far away to be appropriately distant from you. We ask that that boundary be respected otherwise. But please know that in my heart, I'm giving each and every one of you a big hug. Last but not least, what is it that makes this a family service every year? It's the discussions and games that we get to do with each other. So to start, I want you, before we even begin the service, we're about to begin with the daily blessings. Judaism teaches us that we have to remember all the stuff that we're grateful for, because if we don't, we take it for granted. And if there's one thing we learned after last year, it's that there's so many things that we used to just take for granted and assume was going to be fine, and we realized it wasn't. If you told any of us 2 years ago that we were going to be stuck inside with the same group of people for months on end, no one would have believed us. We took for granted what it means to go out and be able to see each other and go to school and be healthy and do all those things. So this year, what I'd like you to begin is take a moment to do both for yourself as a family first, and then to the family next to you. I want you to decide what was your family's greatest blessing of the past 12 months. What was your family's greatest blessing of the past 12 months? Decide amongst yourself, and then share with the family next to you. Take about 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So now that you've decided what your biggest blessing is, share that idea with the people who are next to you. Or if you're shmoo, just come up and tap me and say hello.
Alright, Ben, what was yours?
I think we decided on screens. Screens.
That's good.
It saved us a lot of time. What was yours?
Travel, we're able to go to like family camp, and our pet.
I would say maybe our dog. We got a new dog during, you don't think so? I don't know.
Okay.
I'm getting rid of her.
I hope that being able to quantify that blessing really helps make this moment a little bit more special and to call things to mind. So in order to make it truly real, what I'd ask is, we're going to open our books for the first time to page 6. If you don't have a red book already, there are still some available over on the table. They're there for children and adults of all ages. If you'll open up to page 6, what I'm going to ask is that the people on my right, your left, are going to be one group, and the people on my left, your right, will be the other group. Starting with the group 1 over here on my right, we're each going to start with the same tune, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, and then we're going to add the English that is on the first line at the top of the page. Then the next group will say Amen, and do the blessing, and add the English at the end of the second line. Then group 1 will do the third, the fourth, the fifth, and so on and so forth. So first, give yourselves a stretch. Please rise if you would. We always stand when we are looking for our important blessings. So we start by saying over here on this side, 1, 2, ready, go. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for letting me see a new day. And everyone on this side says, Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for making me a Jewish person. Everyone on this side says,
Amen.
Baruch Atah Adonai. Let me hear you guys.
Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for giving me freedom.
Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for forming me in your image.
Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for giving me all my needs.
Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for creating our earth. Amen.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam,
for opening our eyes to all that is around us. Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, for strengthening those who are tired or afraid. Amen.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam,
for offering us guidance and hope. So you may be seated, but here's what I want to give any and everyone a chance to do. This is a moment to share the blessing or blessings that you were able to come up with before. If anyone wants to tell us something that wasn't on this list, that would really, really like to say that they're grateful for, that they're thankful for, all you need to do is stand up and say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for whatever your blessing was. So does any, yes, Aliza, would you stand up and do it really well? Stand up right where you are. Baruch. For
nature and animals.
For nature and animals. Amen. Does anyone else have a blessing they'd like to add for this month that they're particularly grateful for, especially in these past 12 months? Yes, Sydney.
For family and friends.
Wait, hang on, we start by saying, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For family and friends. Amen. In the back, the Gichon lips. Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
For the health of our family this year.
Amen. Anyone else? Over there in the corner? I can't see, but I can see a hand, but I can't see who. Oh, Aaron, go for it. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
For food and drinks.
For food and drinks. Amen. Just remember, when we come to Yom Kippur, hold that blessing. We'll come back. Right here in the front, Kaya Papaya.
Okay.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Toys.
For toys. Of all sizes and shapes. Grown-ups too. Amen. Aliza, one more.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for people.
Amen. Look, we say that, it sounds at first like, wait, just people? Think about how much this past year you didn't spend with people other than your own family. Think about what for so many of us it meant to finally be able once again to go out and see people. That is what cultivating a life of gratitude is all about, is not letting ourselves ever take those things for granted again. Olivia, was there a hand back there? Go ahead. Amen. For wonderful holidays indeed. So we continue with the celebration of the holiday on page 14 as we read the Chatzi Taddish together. It's our break between the warm-up part of the service and the more serious part of the service. It's already put our hearts and minds in the right place. So if you would you please rise? And you'll hear the special High Holy Day melody. But before we do it really quick, I want you to whisper to each other, because sometimes prayer can be hard. I want you to decide as a family, we already did the greatest blessing for the past 12 months. Tell us, if you can whisper each other, what was the biggest challenge and how did you get over it? Okay? I love it. Listen. All right. My hope is that you've seen that there are things we thought we couldn't do last year, things we never thought we would ever have to do. And we did them. And we made it. And we are better and stronger for it, so that when we add our prayers this month, this year, they're that much stronger. So we say in the traditional High Holy Day melody on page 14, a little different than you're used to it, so please feel free to join me as it comes in, or as your part comes in the middle of 14. Yitgadal, Yitgadal, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divrach Yeruteh, Be'yamlich Malchuteh, Bechayechon, U'yomechon, U'chayedcho Beit Yisrael, Bagala, U'bizman Kariv, Ve'imru, Amen. Together. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam U'lamei Almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yibar Yitraman V'yinaseh, Vitadar vitale vitalal, Shemei de kudsha barichu, le'ela ule'ela, min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'almaya, ve'imru amen. Could I ask, as we turn to the beginning of the service on page 15 for the Baruch Hu, that I ask the Reichline boys to come join me up here. Would you guys join me at the table, because we have to keep ourselves a little separate. You guys stand right in front of the table, in front, on this side. There you go. Because we're actually going to face the ark and bow at the appropriate times. I'll get this going. 1 second. 1, 2, ready. That's the, there we go. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Together we say, Baruch Hu et Adonai, Amen. Ora. Everyone joins. Baruch Adonai, Amen. Ora. Amevora leolam vaed. Amevora, amevora leolam vaed. You may be seated. By the way, any number of you have volunteered very graciously to help me with the service this morning. My request is that if you come, when it told you to go stand by the side, stand over here and then use this microphone whenever it's your turn to be reading so that we can stay appropriately safe with one another. So, we continue the service then on page 15 with Yotzer, or only one line in Hebrew. The Hebrew line is there both in English and in transliteration, so in Hebrew and in transliteration. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzei or uvorei Oseh shalom, shalom, uvorei et hakol. Yotzei or uvorei Moshe. Oseh shalom, shalom, uvorei et hakol. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, who has made this entire beautiful earth and given us shade from a tent to keep us cool on a day like today. We turn then to page 16. I believe I have a reader who's coming up to help me with this one. Yes, just make sure your mouth is close to the mic, okay? You can pull the mic down if you need it. There you go.
Perfect. Imagine waking up one morning to total darkness.
We're on page 16 at the bottom.
It would be rather scary for we count on the sunlight, warmth, and vegetation. Although we count on sunlight, we should not take it for granted. Each day we must be grateful for its appearance. What else is a regular part of life that we should not take for granted?
So, Jillian asked us a question. Take just a moment to see if you as a family can answer that question of what it is that you think you should not take for granted this year. Thank you, Jillian. What is something that sometimes you always assume is going to be there, and you should pay more attention and realize it's not always going to be there. We should be very grateful when it is. So Jillian read for us that we look forward to the sun coming up every day. We never know for sure exactly how it's going to be. There are some days that are sunnier than others, but we're grateful that, God willing, there will always be a day with sun and light. Let us hope that we take care of our earth in such a way that it doesn't get too hot. And we say together at the top of page 19, Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, V'nizkeh ulanu mehira le'oro. May the God who continues to create make a new light shine on Zion every day. May this light help us a path to you. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, the creator of all lights. We continue with the reading that's in the Torah on page 19. Nice catch. Just find your place. It's on page 19. We're looking at the reading that's in the drawing of the Torah that Sydney's going to read for us.
Great is your love, Adonai, and deep is your tenderness. As you taught our ancestors, teach us your words of Torah. Let our eyes read with understanding, and let us feel in our hearts loyalty and love for you and your ways. May we listen to its words and lovingly follow its teachings. May honoring your Torah bring us honor.
Wow. Thank you very much, Sydney. Nicely done, nicely read. And let's hope that we can also remember those words. That hopefully, as we learn to love Torah, and not just the physical thing in this cabinet here, but to learn the lessons of life, that's how we show each other love. The way that we are able to express ourselves in a way that says we want to live together in a world where everyone follows the rules to the best of their ability. That's what makes it safe and kind for all of us. So, I have a couple people I know who are helping me with the Shema this morning. You can find the text of the Shema on page 22. If you're here, would you come help us? Shmood, you need a little help getting to that? Shmood, come up to the mic for me. Okay? What? Yes, I can. Oops, sorry. Give us a count so we can hear it. 1,
2, 3.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. If I could have my Ve'ahavta readers come join me and help me on page 22 with the reading of the Ve'ahavta. Thank you, Shmuel. You guys can adjust the mic to a less Shmu height. And if everyone will join with Judah and Tova. Sorry, with Evan and Tova, my apologies.
Can you raise this?
Yes, just tip it back. There you go. There we are. Page 23. 1, 2, ready, go. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'bechol nafshecha v'bechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavtecha hayom b'varecha v'shinantam b'vanecha v'dibarta bam v'shitecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha b'derech v'shafecha b'necha v'shaktam le'od al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'einecha v'uptatam al mezuzot beitecha v'yisharecha. Thank you both. We pray silently on page 24, looking inside of our hearts. at the prayer that says what happens when we do right and what happens when we do wrong. We know that it's not a perfect correlation. Doing right doesn't always get you the right thing, and doing wrong doesn't always get you punished. But we know that the world is a better place when people are always trying to do the right thing. If you are wearing a talit, as many of you are who are adults, we take our tzitzit right now and we hold them, and in the Hebrew that's there on page 25, 3 times it actually says the word tzitzit, and we remember with our tzitzit that we kiss them because the tzitzit represent the mitzvot, the things that we're supposed to do and supposed to remember how to do. And we want to feel that doing the right thing is a good thing and that we love. So, if you have a tzitzit, if you have a talit, you can kiss your own tzitzit. If not, we have a tradition from camp where we call it, at least within families, linky to pinky, which means take your pinkies to the next person next to you. So that becomes your own tzitzit, and instead of kissing tzitzit itself, you can just kiss the pinkies that are linked. So feel free to link the pinkies. As we get to the words in Hebrew on page 25. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, Daber el bnei Yisrael, ve'amarta alehem, ve'asu lachem tzitzit. There's one. Al kanfei bigdeihem l'totam, ve'natnu al tzitzit. There's 2. Hakanaf v'til techelet, ve'haya lachem l'tzitzit. וריצם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תצורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. So on page 27, we have the Micha Mocha, which is a prayer that we say every morning and night in a traditional service. We say it because it's the words that our people said the very first thing when they became free from Egypt for the first time. And normally, it's really hard for us to imagine what that must have been like. I mean, after all, these people were slaves for 400 years. To be free from that, well, thankfully, I hope we'll never have to worry about that. But I will say that this year, maybe more than ever, these words which we've said probably dozens of times before, take on a whole new meaning. Because this year, while we are not 100% as free, we are not cooped up anymore. Last year, this time, we were all locked in away from everyone else other than our immediate pods and bubbles. Last year, we had to spend months and months without seeing people we know, love, and care about, except for the miracle of technology. So this year, as we sing Micha Mocha, I want you to sing it with the joy of what it means to truly be once again free, to be able to come out and celebrate together, even under these crazy circumstances. So we use the High Holy Day melody that we were using before, page 27. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot oseh veleh, Shira hadasha shiku gilim, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו המליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. So, before we begin with the Amidah, which is the central part of the morning service before the actual Torah and Shofar pieces, it's our main prayer where we begin asking for how we can be better. In a regular Amidah, on a weekday, we would just ask for a list of 18 or 19 standard things. It's the place where we would ask for also anything that was on our personal wish list. But we changed the Amidah for Rosh Hashanah for these 10 days to remind us that we have work to do, that we need to do what we can to make each of ourselves better people so that we can make the world a better place. Better people lead to better worlds. So here's what I want you to think about, not talking to your family this time, but I want you to think for just 30 seconds. What's the one thing that when we come to Rosh Hashanah next year that I want to be better about? What's one thing in my mind that I want to do better, that I know I don't do as well as I could yet? Think just to yourself quietly. If you have to ask your mom or dad, feel free. But think about what it is before we rise for prayer. Think about that one thing you want to work on best. And parents, file this moment away for the car ride home. Okay, got it. It'll come up right before we do this. Thanks. Okay, I'm ready for it. Right. Okay. If you have that thought in your mind, I ask that you all please rise, or those who are able to do so, please. Come on. We turn to page 29. And using the High Holy Day melody, feel free to join me as much as you can. We say together. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth shall praise you and your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'kodnei Hakol, V'zocher, Chasdei Avot v'imahot, U'mevii Goel livnei bneihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Zochreinu l'chaim, Melech ha'petz b'chaim, V'chotvenu b'sefer ha'chaim למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר פוקד מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיים מתים אתה, רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבולות ומדומה לך, מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, אב הרחמים, זוכר יצורה לחיים ברחמים, ונאמרת לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני Mechaye Hametim. You may pray quietly for all of the strength and blessings that you need. You can use the blessings that are written on pages 34 to 38 or the messages that are on your heart. Whatever it is that inspires you, please feel free to speak those words to your power, to your God. And when you are done with your intermediate prayer, you may be seated. You are continuing with the Amidah, please feel free to stay standing and take as long as you need. Be uplifted by the sounds of our voices as we add the closing of the bracha of the Amidah, page 39 in the Hebrew, as well as the transliteration on the same page. Sefer Chaim beracha v'shalom u'parnasa tova Nizacher v'nikater lefanecha Anachnu bechol amcha beit Yisrael Chaim tovim lechaim tovim u'leshalom. Please join me in the singing. Oseh shalom bimrocha u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. All right, a bit of a break of sorts before we go back to the actual Torah reading piece of the service. I want to sort of give ourselves the ability to do a little improv, a little bit of work together to see if we can have a little bit of fun. So I want to create two groups. One adults, one kids. If you're not sure which one you belong, pick the one you think is most appropriate. So, the way the game works is as follows. Today, on Rosh Hashanah, it is known as the birthday of the world. So, the way the game works is, I want someone from anyone who can come up to this microphone, just be sure you keep your distance, and your job is to come up with any song, you only have to give us a tiny snippet of it, that either mentions birthdays or celebrations, and see how many we can come up with. So as soon as you have an idea, come running up and you can start singing a little bit of that song into the microphone. Adults, let's see who can do better, us or the kids. Anytime you have something ready, or you know a birthday song or a celebration song, come up to the mic and take it. Don't wait for me. Any song that has anything to do with birthdays or celebrations. Go, Lisa. Go to the mic,
What are we doing?
Come up and sing just a tiny bit of the song into the mic.
Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!
Okay, that's one. One for the kids. Okay?
Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday, dear somebody that has a birthday! Happy birthday to you!
Okay, that's one. Let's see who else has a celebration or a birthday song.
העולם כולו
גשר
גשר צר מאוד.
A whole world is a narrow bridge. We've got birthday of the world. That works. Who's got it? You can lift the mic accordingly.
Hey world,
Hey,
it's
world.
your birthday. Party like it's your birthday.
Absolutely. Nicely done. Who else has a different... Oh, we have someone coming right here. Say it's your birthday. It's my birthday too, yeah. It can just be a celebration song. It doesn't have to be a birthday song. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take the mic. No, that mic. Gotta use that mic. Into the mic. Aaron, go ahead. Sure, give him some room.
Aliyah Shamel, Aliyah Shamel, Aliyah Shamel, Aliyah Shamel.
Very nice. Happy birthday in Hebrew. Emily, do you have one coming up? Oh, that's a celebration song if ever I heard one. Nicely done, Emily. Okay. Celebrate good times, come on. Okay.
I forgot it.
I've got anyone got one to bring the house down to finish us up? Aliza, go ahead.
Hello, it's my birthday. Yeah! Dude, it's my birthday!
When actually is your birthday, by the way?
July.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago. Okay, so if we could, I believe there's a family that was asked to come open up the ark for Avinu Malkeinu. So if you would you take your prayer books, turn to page 41 and 42, and we rise as the ark is open. What I'll do is I will chant the Hebrew that's on page 41. After each one, I ask that you please read the English that is on page 42. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. You guys read? Avinu Malkeinu, Asei Lanu Lema'an Shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, rid us of oppressors, and let there be no more war and destruction.
Avinu Malkeinu, Taddish Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, forgive and pardon our
Avinu
sins.
Malkeinu, Batamei Aleinu Kol Gzirot Kashot.
Avinu Malkeinu, help us to turn to you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Batal Machshavot Tzomkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, heal the sick and remember those in need.
Avinu Malkeinu, Mechei B'cha'ezeb Sha'inu B'chatureteinu Mineged Einecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, write us in the book of happiness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Otzvenu B'Sefer Geula B'Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, write us in the book of
Avinu
forgiveness.
Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila.
Avinu Malkeinu, show us mercy and loving kindness.
Avinu Malkeinu, shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, do not hurt us with my
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, do not turn us away unanswered. Please join us in singing the last part on page 42. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu V'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu V'aneinu, Ki en banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu V'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu V'aneinu, Ki en banu masim. As the ark is closed briefly, you may be seated. Thank you to the Gordon family for being our openers. So we're about to get ready for our Torah service. A couple things to take in mind. Normally we would call people up in groups for Aliyot. For COVID safety this morning, what we'll do is I will still give the usual categories for the Aliyot when it comes time, but I will ask people to do the Aliyah simply by standing from their seats, and people will respond with the appropriate blessings. A reminder also, after we take the Torah out, that we will not be parading it around as we usually do, only because, again, COVID safety, but I'll at least walk it by the front. If you want, instead of being able to give the Torah a physical kiss, you can, as always, blow one gently, just a little bit, so that people know what your feelings are, and that we're still being COVID safe the whole time. Last but not least, the Torah reading that we'll hear about this morning is going to be read by Ezra Shofar, and I'll say a little bit more about it when it comes time. So, with that in mind, it is such a welcome thing to be able to say that we can stand in presence with Torah. For the past few months, we've had to look at just things on a screen for Torah stories. Today, we're able to all be together. So I ask that we truly feel joy as we rise, turning to page 44. And I believe this is a family that was asked to open the ark at this point. Wait for just a minute until we get to that. You can come up, just wait till the opening, until we get to the middle of page 44. Feel free to join me if you wish. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'en kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Vayehi b'nso Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ve'afutzu oivecha, ve'yanusu misanecha, mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, u'devar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. Please join me in reading on page 45. Adonai, Adonai, the way we remember God as being grateful and merciful and kind and forgiving. And so if we can be forgiving, God can be forgiving of us, we can be forgiving too. We sing once through. Adonai, Adonai, El Ra'um Lechanun, Erev Habayim, V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet, Yotzer Chesed La'alafim, Yotzer Avon V'Pesha, V'Chatza'am V'Nakeh, V'ani Tefilati, Tefilati Lecha Adonai et Ratzon Elohim Berov Chasdecha Aneni Aneni Be'emet Yishecha.
Adonai, Adonai, merciful and patient, God, you remember our kind acts for 1,000 generations. You accept our shortcomings and pardon our sins. May the words I say today be acceptable to you. Adonai, show me kindness and answer the prayers of my heart.
Amen. If you'll join after me, I'll do the first line out loud and you'll repeat it on page 46 for each of the first two lines. First me and then you. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh V'Norah Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh V'Norah Shemo.
Gadol Adonai Iti V'Neromema Shemo Yachdav.
Adonai HaGedula VeHaGevura VeHaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHaHod Kito b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Kito b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Lecha Adonai Amamacha Ve'amid Na'aseh Lecho. Okay, as the Torah is down, you may be seated as well. Find your spot. Got it? You want to close it up? Just fix that. Okay. So the Torah reading we can find on page 46. Actually on 49, excuse me. And I say this every year, but I think it bears repeating this year more than ever. For almost all of the other holidays, the rabbis had us read about some massive moment in Jewish history. On Passover, they chose the reading where we get out of slavery and cross, and then at the end of Passover when we cross the Red Sea. On Shavuot, they had us read about Mount Sinai. At Sukkot, they read us the calendar of the entire year. But at Rosh Hashanah, they read about a family argument. And that's it. Not some big grand moment where God works miracles or does something out of the ordinary, but just a family that's struggling to get along all together. And that's because I think that's where we need to place our focus. This holiday isn't about big, giant moments and celebrations of things. It's about taking a look at ourselves and our families and saying, just like Abraham, Isaac, Sarah, Hagar, and Ishmael all had to figure out how they were going to get along and live together, we have to do the same. Sometimes, especially when we have to be in the pandemic and live with each other for a lot more than we usually do, we get on each other's nerves. Sometimes we want to throw one of the people in the family out. But somehow, thank goodness, we managed to stay together. So my hope is, as we hear this story, that we're able to say, just like they managed to solve their disagreements, so too can we. Each Isaac and Ishmael were able to grow and raise their own families. May it be that all of our children grow to love one another, to be the fathers and mothers of their own families some days, and that the cycle continues. You can find the Torah reading in English and in Hebrew on pages 49, 51. For the Aliyot, here's what I would ask. The first Aliyah is about the promise that God makes to Hagar that she will be safe. So anyone who has made a promise that they've been able to keep this year, or that they're looking to keep a promise in particular, please feel free to rise at this time and give us the blessing that's on page 49. You only need to do it I'll do it with you. You just need to be standing so that we can support the Torah accordingly. So all those who have a promise that they want to keep this year, would you please rise? We say together, all those who are standing. 1, 2, ready, go. Baruch et Adonai Hamborach. Everyone answers?
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Those who are standing, remain standing throughout the reading of this verses.
Amen. Vadonai pakad et Sarah kasher amar vayas Adonai Sarah kasher diber vatahav vateled Sarah l'Avraham ve'in lizkunav lamoed asher diber oto Elohim vayikra Avraham et shem beno hanolad lo asher yada lo Sarah Yitzchak ויאמר אברהם את יצחק בנו בן 8 ימים כאשר ציווה אותו אלוהים.
So God kept the promise to Sarah, and she gave birth to a son. And Abraham named that son Isaac, because the word Yitzchak in Hebrew comes from the word litzchok, meaning to laugh. This was because Sarah had laughed when she learned that she and Abraham would have a child in their old age. And so to those of us who are standing, say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Everyone says? Amen. You may be seated. For the second Aliyah, this is the moment where Abraham and Sarah are not so kind to one another. So we use the Torah as inspiration and say, the second Aliyah is for anyone who is looking to be a little bit kinder with their words. So for anyone for whom that's a high priority this year, you please rise and join us for the Aliyah to help make that intention a little bit more real. Again, the blessing is on page 48, so you're not doing it alone. Anyone who's looking to use their words more kindly, please feel free to rise and join us as together we say, Baruch et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ואברהם ב100 שנה והיוולד לו את יצחק בנו ותאמר שרה צחוק עשה לי אלוהים כל השומע יצחק לי ותאמר מי מילל אברהם הנה כבנים שרה כי ילדתי בן לזקניו ויגל הילד ויגמר ויעש אברהם משתה כדור ביום יגמל את יצחק.
And Isaac grew up, And Sarah demanded that Abraham send away Ishmael, the son he had had with Hagar. Trying to understand Sarah's behavior, the rabbis explained that Sarah was afraid that Ishmael would have a bad influence on Isaac. And Abraham was bothered by Sarah's demand and did not know what to do. But God told him to follow Sarah's advice, for Isaac would be the one to continue the covenant between God and Israel. And Abraham must not be troubled about Ishmael. His destiny would also be to be the father of another great nation. We continue with the blessing after the reading on the top of page 49. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. You may be seated. The final blessing on the morning of Rosh Hashanah at the family service is always reserved for anyone who had a birth in their family, not necessarily in their immediate family, but if you have a new baby cousin or a new baby, someone of that ilk, someone who's really close by, this is the way of honoring them because this is the story of the birth of Isaac, the father of the Jewish people. So if anyone had a new baby in their family, please rise at this time. Jillian and Sydney, who is it, by the way?
Our cousin.
Your cousin, what's the name?
Cheryl.
Sir?
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Oh, that's beautiful. And back there, is it the Friedmans?
Yes.
Okay. Who is it that's got the...
My sister has 2 little twins.
Oh, congratulations. And boy, girls?
2 girls.
2 girls. Named?
Cecile and Juliet.
May they go to be long and healthy, live long lives and be healthy. The Spiros?
My sister had a baby.
Oh, that's right. She just had the baby. This is my goodness. And what was the baby's name? Say again? Sutton. Beautiful, like Sutton Foster.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So for the 3 of you remain standing, or 3 families remain standing, and give the blessing that's there on the bottom of page 48, together as a family for this particular day. May they, as I said, live long and healthy lives and grow to be old one day with families of their own. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. ותרא שרה את בן הגר המצרית אשר ידע לאברהם לשחק ותאמר לאברהם גרש המה הזאת ואת בנה כי לא יירש בן המה הזאת עם בני עם יצחק וירא הדבר מאוד בעיני אברהם על אודות בנו ויאמר אלוהים אל אברהם אל ירא בעיניך אל הנער ואל אמתך כה אשר תאמר אליך שרה שמה בקולה כי ביצחק יקרא לך זרע.
Okay. So in the morning, Abraham gave Hagar some bread and a container of water and sent her and Ishmael away. She then wandered around in the wilderness of Beersheba. When there was no more water left, Hagar moved away from her son because she didn't want to see him die. Alone and afraid, she burst into tears. But God heard the cry of Ishmael, and at the same time an angel reassured Hagar. And then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well of water from which she let Ishmael drink. And as promised, God was with Ishmael as he grew into an adult. He became a bowman in the wilderness of Haran, and the father of a great nation. We say together, for those who are welcoming births, the top of page 49. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now, having completed the Torah reading, by the way, thank you, Ezra. That was clearly what we would call, I would say it's a 10-bell Torah reading, but officially we think it was 11. Actually, maybe 12 by the time it was all said and done. So, we want to be able to lift the Torah, to dress it and get it ready for the Shofar service. So would you please rise as the Torah is lifted? Come on over, guys. All you want to do is slide this back towards me and lift using your legs, not your arms. Bend down all the way to the ground. Bend all the way to the ground. Squat. There you go. There you go. V'zot haTorah
Asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
Excellent. Torah, 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 Torah,
Torah, Torah, Torah.
Tziva lanu Moshe.
Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe.
Morasha kehilat Yaakov. Morasha kehilat Yaakov. Morasha kehilat Yaakov. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. There we go. The press leg goes on over the front. The yod gets hung on your right and my left. Your right.
My right.
Yeah. There you go. And just place it onto the table. There we go. And as the Torah goes down, you may be seated. Thank you. Okay. Clearly, it is the time for music in ways that we might not have anticipated. This is the moment that we've been waiting for 2 years. Last year, on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, not only was it on Zoom and therefore really difficult to do, it was also a Saturday. So we didn't blow shofar until the second day of Rosh Hashanah. This year, I think we understand that the blessings that we say over shofar are that much more special. We say it's 2 blessings. One, for being grateful for able to hear the voice of the shofar. And number 2, we say Shehecheyanu. When we say Shehecheyanu, it's often almost like a throwaway blessing. We just say it as an addition on, but it's anything but. Shehecheyanu is a blessing I think we all appreciate much more now, because it says, Shehecheyanu, God gave us life. V'kiyamanu, kept us going throughout this. V'higianu, and enabled us to actually reach this day. I don't know when it was September 2020 if I thought we'd ever see days like this anytime soon again. I don't know what it was like when we didn't have vaccines, and we didn't know when things were going to finish, and we didn't know how long this isolation would last. But this year, it's not just a shofar of music, of joy. It's a shofar of release, a shofar of excitement. It even announces the year of release, the Shemitah year. The year where we are supposed to declare everything to be free, everything to be open once again. And so for this joy, we're so excited. I only wish that next year we'll be able to do what we usually do and come much closer as we blow shofar. This year we still have to stay a little bit distant in order to make things work appropriately. But I want us all to be able to behold the shofar service as much as possible and to enjoy all the sounds. Here's my one message to you about it this year. Everything about the shofar reminds us to embrace uncertainty. I'll say it again. Everything about the shofar reminds us to embrace uncertainty. Right now, we're at this really difficult space. We're at the space where we're not sure what we can do and what we can't do. Is it going to be safe to go out again? Is it not safe to go out again? Do we need this? Do we not? it's very hard to figure out how the world is going to be. We send our children to school, and we hold our breath that we're not going to get that dreaded phone call about what's going to come and whether we'll need to stay home or quarantine because someone somewhere nearby made things difficult. If there's one thing this past year taught us, it's that life isn't certain. We don't get to make the plans, and even when we do, they go a little awry. That's why the shofar blasts the way it does. The first blast is a tekiah, a straight blast. That's the plans we make, straight and uninterrupted. But the next blast is called shvarim, literally meaning broken, because the noise is broken up, and it tells you that even when you make those perfect plans, life happens, and the plans go awry, sometimes for months. The next blast is Teruah, which mimics the sound of us running around trying to figure out how to deal with life when the plans we make go broken. And it feels like we're going all over the place. But the last blast that we always hear is Tekiah Gedolah, the one long blast. And that blast is there because it represents the backbone that keeps us safe amidst the chaos. It's the long, sustained relationships, the love of our friends and family, the support we get from everyone to be able to make it through. That's what holds us together when times are uncertain. If there's one thing that made all of this life bearable in quarantine, it was the reconnections and the connections with people near and far. The people we reached out to, the people we clung close to, the people we held close. So this year more than ever, I hope as we hear the shofar and we do it together that we truly appreciate everything it stands for. So I'd ask, could we all please rise to be able to hear the sound of the shofar for 5,782. If you'll turn to page 64, I'll need your help to make the appropriate calls, especially because I have to face the other way so that my shofar is not blowing everything at you, especially in this COVID world. On page 64, we read at the top of the page the blessing that's there. The only three words you may not know already are the last three that read Lishmoa Kol Shofar. You can repeat those after me. Lishmoa Kol Shofar. Putting it together, it's Lishmoa Kol Shofar. The other blessings, the other words before you all know from ever having lit Shabbat candles or done other mitzvah blessings. So we say with real heart and intention together on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. In English, blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy through the mitzvot and commanded us to hear the sound of the shofar. And last but not least, the Shehecheyanu, where this year we truly get to celebrate and say, thank you for having brought me to this day. We say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'hiyanu lazman hazeh. Now what I need from each of you is to be able to call the blessings of, the calls of the shofar that are listed there on page 64. Please call them in order with a tonal voice as best as you can. On the count of three, you guys will start, I'll follow. 1, 2, 3. indulge me. Okay. With everyone still standing, we need a moment to be able to return the Torah to the Ark. So could I ask, I believe it's the Berger family who's going to come and open the doors for us. And I need us to be able to all sing and clap. You guys have a little bit more voice left than I do at the moment. So if you guys will join me in singing. Shalom, 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 shalom. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. You may be seated. Okay, we have just a tiny bit more to go before we hit our big close. I want to give everyone a breather, myself included after that, by able to turn to what's on page 86. 86 is one of the 3 sections of the Musaf service that we would do if we were in a main service. For a family service, I don't know that we need to do an entire one, but I feel like this one is an appropriate one to add. I always try to add one section each year and switch it up so it's a little different. This section is the second of 2. It's called Zichronot. It comes from the word God will remember, Zikaron, or Zocher. So what I want to know is I want you to sit as a family for about 2 minutes, and I want you to ask, what do you want God to remember? Excuse me, not what do you want God. What do you want to remember about the past 12 months? You might want to remember it because something was really good, or what might you want to remember because you don't want to repeat it again? But either way, this is a way of saying, these are the things I want to bring with me from last year into this year. And I don't want to let them just slip by and be forgotten. So take a minute or 2 in your families and say, what do we want to remember and not forget? Take about 1 minute more. Okay. Hey Shmoo, I have a song for you to bring things down. If you want to help with it, you can. But I'll bring the mic down. It's on page 98. As we begin to bring our service to a close, we have only a few last prayers and a short story to go. On page 98, I think you'll recognize it. Exactly. It's Ein Keloheinu.
Do you remember that show?
Ein Kelo. You know that? It used to be the one I knew you loved most, so I wasn't sure.
It's been a while.
Okay, so on page 898, would you guys just join us in bringing some of the closing prayers together? Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. We turn to page 99. We rise for Aleinu. Okay. Aleinu l'shaber b'adon hakol, l'ateitu al yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'arasot, velo samanu kimishmechot ha'adama, shelo samdelkeinu dahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. V'anahu korenim u'mishtachavim u'modim l'ifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim v'yoser haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim ima'ah u'shchinatu zo b'kovei meronim u'eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes ulato kakatu v'tovato yadatayo v'hashevota el elavecha ki Adonai hu ha'elohim b'shamayim ima'ah ve'al ha'aretz Nitzachat ein od. We turn to page 100 at the bottom. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai lo le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz v'yom ha'u yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad. You may be seated. The last thing that we always close the service with before our prayers and goodbye song is the Mourner's Taddish. We know that every year there are people who are still in mourning and are trying to remember those who loved and are left us in our life either at this season or within the past year. So with that in mind, if there's someone you're remembering and you need to say Kaddish for, please feel free to rise and honor that person's name at this time. As I pass my hand around the room, if you'll tell us who that person is and how they were connected to.
My mother, my great aunt, and long lost friend.
May their memories always be for a blessing, and may we always find comfort in the love and support of those who are around us. Those who are reciting Mourner's Kaddish, the text is on page 101. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah ve'almad livrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechol v'yomechol v'chayed v'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kari v'yivru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulamei almayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kusha b'richu le'ela le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'numa hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru
May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. A bit of a closing story that I know almost all of you have heard, but bears repeating in a year like this one. I'm sure you guys know the way it works. Feel free to play along with me as it goes. The story goes that there was a young family that lived in a very small, crowded home. Everyone always felt like they were living on top of each other. They were bumping into each other. It was chaotic. Everyone felt like they didn't have enough space. The family went to the rabbi of the town and said, "Rabbi, we have so little space in our tiny little home. We are always bumping into each other. It's so difficult. How can you help us to get along better?" The rabbi thought over a minute and she said, "I tell you what, do you have cows that are outside?" He said, "Yes, we do. They're great." He said, "Bring them in the house." So suddenly, inside the house now, not only were there all the children, the mother and the father, but 2 cows. So imagine the scene. Feel free to add some sound effects if you wish with the cows now being in the house, children. You can add whatever you wish. Keep going. Okay, keep going. This is what the house started to sound like. It was crazy enough with just people, but when there was mooing all the time, it got worse. They went back to the rabbi and they said, "Rabbi, I don't understand. Now my home is even worse than it was before." The rabbi thought for a minute and said, "How can I fix this?" He said, "Do you have any dogs that you keep as pets that usually sleep outside?" He said, "Yes, they do." He said, "Close up their doghouse. Bring them in the house too." So now, in addition to all the people, we had the cows and all the dogs. And it was more crowded than ever and noisier than ever with where things could have been. People couldn't even move 1 inch without tripping or falling into one another, and they certainly could barely sleep with all the mooing and the barking and everything else going on. They went back to the rabbi and said, "Rabbi, I'm at my wit's end. All the cows are in my house. All the dogs are in my house." They said, "Well, wait a minute. Don't you also have goats that help keep your grass nice and trim?" He said, "Well, of course we do," but he said, "Bring them in the house too." So now, inside the house, this tiny little house, were all the people, the cows, the dogs, and the goats and lambs. And it was, people were almost reduced to sleeping standing up. There was no room even to sit there. People fell asleep just leaning against the walls of the house, and that's if you didn't knock the walls of the house over because you were too heavy. It got so crazy and so crowded. And the family went back to the rabbi and said, "Rabbi, you told us to bring the cows in the house. That didn't work. They told us to bring the dogs in the house. That didn't work. They told us to bring the lambs in the house." And the rabbi said, "I tell you what, send all the animals out." And suddenly, the house seemed so quiet. The house seemed so big. The house seemed like it had more than enough room now that all the other animals were gone. I tell you that story because it teaches us 2 lessons. The first is that too often we don't appreciate what we actually have. We complain about everything being not big enough, not new enough, not fast enough, not whatever it is enough. And we don't appreciate the good fortune that each of us is blessed with. But the famous piece of the story that I think matters most to us in a year like this is that, as the old Yiddish saying goes, it could always be worse. And by God, now, if there were ever a year that we understood that more than ever, it's this one. Having just lived through one of the most difficult, isolating, polarizing, difficult, challenging, trying, cramping, you name the difficult adjective, we went through it last year. It will be easy at moments like this to complain about how great things aren't going right now. But we should all remember that as difficult, trying, and uncertain as everything is right now, we know how much worse it can be. We know how much worse it was. We know how many people lost their health, their lives, or their mental health in this past year.
thank God we are all here to love, to hug, to celebrate, and to get through. And there will be times, these next few weeks or months, that things will be difficult. There will be times when your child will get that dreaded call and you'll have to be home for 8 or 10 days and it will not be fun. But it is so much better than being cooped up for months on end behind screens. It is so much better to be able to be here, to be able to love, and to be able to hug. So my wish for you, everyone, as we go forward into the year 5782, for which this is the first of 383 days on the Jewish calendar, is that we go forward remembering not only that it could be a lot worse, but also, as we started by saying, Hine matzov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How beautiful and how pleasant it is when we can all sit here and be in each other's presence and love each other and hold each other literally and metaphorically together. We'll be back here on Yom Kippur, same bat time, same bat channel, same location. Hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler, but thank you for being with us. A few small pieces for the way out. Number one, on your way out, pick up one of these bags that has a little green flyer on it for Sova. Sova is the Hebrew word for satisfied, as in a little bit less hungry. It's a great exercise to do as a family, to go either to the store or to your pantry. Take a look and say, we have so much food, and there are people who don't even know what they're going to have for dinner tonight. What would we want to give them from our pantry that we can always go and replace at the store, but they don't have the money to do that? And put it in the bag, bring the bag back anytime this week, or at least by Yom Kippur. And do it together, not just on our own in a hurry. Do it as a whole family. It'll take you 10 minutes, but it will be a invaluable lesson. Number two, Alicia Cohen-Krause has honey sticks for everyone. Because while we can't have our usual oneg, we still want to have everyone getting a chance to be able to have a taste of sweetness.
One more thing, everybody now has even me, and this is my second one.
Good job, Shmoo. That's the benefits of working for staff. Last but not least, there are people for whom this is their first time in our community. And I would like them, if they are so comfortable, to at least stand and introduce themselves. Let us know who you are, the ages of your children, because chances are there's someone you might know or is going to be your age. So if you're here for the first time, could I ask that you please rise? And as we go, I'll start right here up front. Would you just introduce yourself, say who you are, and your age of your children, and just a welcome.
I'm Jordan Gordon. This is my daughter Serena. She's 11.
And in 6th grade?
Yes.
Okay.
6th grade.
Weingarten family. This is my daughter Sydney and Jillian in 5th grade and 2nd grade.
Okay. In the back?
Friedman family. With Michelle. We have a 10, 8, and 6-year-old, Ayla, Brio, and
Excellent. In the corner?
The Ginsburg family, Eric Ginsburg, Stella, 7, 2nd grade, Maya, 10, 5th grade, and David.
So my request to all of you who weren't standing is you have only one piece of homework, which is that everyone needs to go up to at least one, if not all of those people. Introduce yourself, particularly if you have children in the similar age group. Let them know that they are really part of the family and that they're welcome here at Temple Aliyah. Beyond that, I just want to say to everyone, thank you for having been a great morning. If you have feedback about this morning's service, we're going to do it again at Yom Kippur. I'll appreciate hearing all things both good and challenging. If there's something we could have done to make it more comfortable, less comfortable, well, don't make it. If it's less comfortable, don't tell me. If it's more comfortable, less problematic, anything we can do to make it better or stronger, please do. Will you join me together as we simply say to one another, Shana Tova Umetzukah, a happy and a sweet and healthy new year. Thank you, everyone.